I get to turn my ring as well. That was the criteria. Right. Well, it might be right. That's good. We're like,
Bjorn, broccoli for everybody. Bjorn brushed his hair. I know, but we talked about it.
Brady's here.
Brady, killing it.
We'll pop in.
It does. Victoria, good evening, dear.
I don't see. Yes.
Is that Dara? Dara.
That's Michelle. You just said it's Michelle.
Oh, it's Michelle Nadi.
It's Michelle. All right, so we're just waiting. We were waiting for a few people to pop in, and then we're going to start. We'll wait for the rest of the kids to pop on before we go any further, but. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Education Budget Workshop for March 9th, 2021. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here.
Okay, so just.
Sorry, we're just.
That's okay. You can do attendance. I'm gonna speak to up there. It's awkward because I'm looking at you guys with the cameras up there. Just a little bit of direction. Just a reminder, this is a budget development workshop. So we're gonna have a few presentations. The children from our Student Advisory Council are gonna do a presentation for us as they have the last 2 years. And then Mr. Press is gonna go through his instructional his instructional items of the budget for next year. And we will have a period at the end of this meeting for people to ask questions in regard to the budget presentation. That'll take place after the board is done with their questions. So please just hold on to your questions until we're done. And we'll ask you if you have any questions about the presentations that happened tonight. That being said, thank you for joining us. And we just want to finish taking attendance of the kids that are on here, and then we will start. I see Belinda. I see you're missing.
And we're missing Siobhan.
I don't see Johnny. I see Johnny. Is there a whole nother list? Listen, they're not going to be on the page.
Sorry, there's 38. Okay, source excellence.
Just, can you hit the right button, the right arrow? Go. That's okay. No.
Oh,
You see the arrow?
The arrow right there, the white arrow on the left.
yeah, no, I gotta get it. No, we're good.
On my left. No, that was the X, not the arrow, but okay.
Yep.
We're gonna
I don't have Bill, second.
We're gonna teach Joel his left and his rights next week at SSAC. Other left.
Yeah,
Coming from side to see like the, see Victoria.
Yes, Nicholas?
Deanna, do you see Amalia? Because I don't.
I can't see anyone but you guys.
Okay,
Okay.
never mind. Thanks for
But
trying.
I spoke with Amalia and Braden's parents, and they
Braden's here.
Braden's here.
assured me. Okay,
Amalia's leading off. That's why I was asking.
yeah.
Michelette, are you there, bud? Jonathan Douglas, I can't hear you singing, bud. Where are you? Nope.
Johnny telling me he's late.
Nicholas Luong, you here, bud?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah, he's on.
Second from the
Yeah.
right column, second from the bottom.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
thank you.
All right, I
All right,
just
so-
checked with Jonathan, so give him a minute.
Deanna, I think what we'll do is maybe Braden could speak for Amalia, or you could speak for Amalia.
Either
that
way,
work?
fine. Absolutely.
All right, just, I'm gonna give him one more minute because we're waiting on two other kids, see if they pop in. In the meantime, I'll start my meeting the way we started last week. The way we ended last week by saying thank you to all the administrators and, Mr. Press for working so hard on this budget. We know that, it's been very trying considering the fact that we went out last year with a 0% budget. And we're starting off with a smaller number than we normally would in our program. So if you're in the audience, can you mute yourself, everybody? Make sure you're muted at the moment. Thank you very much. All right, so I can't see if Jonathan is on, but we did text him and we're waiting on one other, but if you're gonna have Deanna or Braden speak for him.
Jonathan's last.
Yeah, so then we'll let the students from the advisory committee go.
If not, I'll say.
Please don't. Go ahead, you. Mr. Reedman, would you like to introduce your committee?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We appreciate the time tonight. Our Superintendent Student Advisory Council would like to make their annual presentation to the Board of Education. They're going to be led tonight by Ms. Dina Riley, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Board of Education on behalf of our students and central administration for allowing our Superintendent Student Advisory Council to present to you this evening.
Please hold while we're having technical
Gotta
difficulties.
go to PowerPoint, we need to do it together.
Right?
You're fine now.
Yeah. I'm only just starting.
Get started. F5.
Sorry I'm late, everyone. My Wi-Fi wasn't working. I apologize.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Plenty of time, bud. Appreciate you coming. How was your day?
It's very stressful, but I'm here.
All that matters.
And there's Amalia.
Yeah, Amalia, all right.
Okay, take two. Good evening, and thank you to the members of the Board of Education and our community on behalf of our students and central administration for allowing us to present to you this evening. We have a panel of students that sit on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council from grades 3 through 8 that will be speaking to you this evening. This evening's presentation is going to begin with our grade 3 students, Amalia Jimenez Delgado.
It's not working.
They probably muted.
No, the clicker.
Clicker.
Did you just click? There.
Okay, there we go. Amalia?
Amalia, unmute, honey.
Hello.
Hello, Amalia. How are you?
Good.
Good. All right. You want to present? Go ahead. We'll click the slides.
Okay. Minecraft Education Edition by me. why I want Minecraft Education Edition. I want Minecraft Education Edition because I think that many kids would be happy. And if many kids are happy, I would be happy. It would make many kids excited to go to school, and kids will learn new things and have fun experiences. Research says that video games can make you smarter, and you can play with friends. Also, people can communicate a lot more. What we can do with Minecraft Education Edition. In Minecraft, you can study how fast an arrow goes, and you can study momentum. Minecraft Education Edition is full of creativity. You can do anything. Mods can make it better. Mods/resource packs are like additions to Minecraft. You can add even more educational things. I'm not exactly sure if you can add them to Education Edition, though. It can also teach you how to survive in the wild if you ever find yourself in a situation like that.
Thank you. And now, Braden Maris.
Okay, so I think some movies on the projector sound cool. In order to have kids be happy on the movie, we would do like a vote on the movies. The way of sorting it out would be easier that way. Then Uno game cards. Uno game card. This is cool, but it would have to be for indoor recess. I like Uno. It's a fun game with friends. So I'm happy to be writing this. I love what they said in the response too. Being a good sport is important. So that is why I will be adding this one.
Thank you, Braden. And now from our grade 4 students, Nala Vargas. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Braden, you have one more. Apologies.
I actually have another one after this.
Yes,
Braden's go.
yes, my apologies.
I do get a lot at recess, and I think other kids do too. So a shady spot seems great for the kids that get hot. Chill out, just talk, do that stuff. And I know just where to put it too. So when you walk outside the recess door, it would be to your left. We would have 3 benches there, and it would be easy to set up, and it's a great idea. A swing set would be nice, but the other playground that they were talking about would have to be a maybe. I like swings. They are fun and nice to chill on. But there's one problem. Kids do stay on the swings for a long time. It's not like we could put like 10 swings, maybe like 5. I don't know, but we'll see.
Thank you, Braden. And now moving on to our grade 4 in George Washington School, Miss Nala Vargas.
Miss Riley, Javon Campbell is going to start off.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Javon Campbell. The George Washington community wants to thank the Board of Ed for this opportunity to present. We met and created a survey. After it was done, each student took the survey, and we looked at the survey results and saw that these were the most popular things that people wanted.
When we say clubs, we don't mean playing Mario Kart for game clubs. We mean educational clubs. For example, instead of games like Fortnite, we'll do educational games like chess or Monopoly to understand the concepts. There's some more clubs like the art club, music club, cooking club, writing club, and the science club for all grades.
Clubs are important because clubs help students learn from clubs such as art club, music club, and gaming club. Clubs could also help students' brain develop more knowledge about the club's purpose and the subject.
We should add new playgrounds because it is an opportunity for the students to have more fun and show up to school more often. The article called Kids Need Playgrounds by Mary Whitman says, researchers realized that school playgrounds have an important effect on a child's learning and development. These facilities also had an effect on the attendance rate at primary schools, proving that playgrounds will help students' education.
Good evening. Another idea we had is for more curriculum. Curriculum to help us learn about different cultures and social issues, fighting racism. This is very important because kids are the future and doing this is the right thing. The right thing is a great way to show around pride.
Okay, thank you from Nala, Oren, Javon, and Julia. Moving on, and Nicholas. Moving on to the West Hempstead Middle School, I'd like to present Ms. Victoria Hassan and Mr. Brady Betts.
Thank you. Good evening. So one of the things that was suggested on our survey from our student input was a tennis team. Many students are interested in a tennis team. The high school has tennis courts, and we can also use them when they are free. And badminton, students are also interested in badminton team. The gymnasium could be a space to have practice. Many students were also interested in a chess club or board game club. On our survey, over 50 students said that they would be interested in these clubs. These games can challenge the brain and keep students thinking.
Hi. So what we saw in the survey was if you actually go to eat the food at the cafeteria, there's really no options for kids who are vegan. If they need to buy lunch or if they forget their lunch at home, they don't have any food to eat. Like, we have a lot of vegetarian stuff, but most of it has cheese in it. So we don't really have many vegan options in the cafeteria. Also, students said that they enjoyed their opportunity to express their feedback and ideas about how to make the school better. They would like to expand such opportunities for students to have a voice in the school.
Thank you. And now, last but certainly never least, Shalae Samuelis, Belinda Rodriguez, and Jonathan Douglas from West Hempstead High School.
Good evening. I wanted to begin by thanking you all for allowing us to have a voice as students and openly share ideas comfortably. Now, I wanted to begin with, I'm Belinda Rodriguez and I'm a 10th grader at the West Hempstead High School. Now, I wanted to begin with the importance of mental health. Mental health of our young generations has been worsening as we continue to deal with this pandemic. It has been said that the rates of depression alongside various other mental disorders have increased 14% since this pandemic has begun. Now, how exactly does this tie in with my topic today? Well, I wanted to take the time to enhance the importance of our students' mental health. As someone like many who struggles with the stress of school, friends, jobs, and other responsibilities, I feel as though it is now more important than ever before to realize just how much our students deal with. Now, what exactly is mindfulness? Mindfulness is the ability to observe, label thoughts, feelings, and sensations in the body. Now, why is this important? Well, as I mentioned previously, we're dealing with a pandemic. Many of our students have lost the ability to participate in things that once brought them joy, such as sports, although some has begun, after school activities, and simple hangouts with friends. Alongside that is the workload that comes from school. Quizzes, tests, projects, all of this leads to the stress levels of our students to increase heavily and our motivation to decrease along with it. Now, what are the advantages of mindfulness? Mindfulness acts as a form of protection against various mental disorders such as depression and anxiety. It also allows stress levels to decrease much more than before. What can we do with this information? Well, I wanted to incorporate yoga and sessions of mindfulness into our health and physical education courses. Aside from that, we can offer an alternative course in which students can participate in sessions of mindfulness, yoga, and education in mental health. Now, we had also conducted a survey in which close to 200 of our students have participated in. We had asked for suggestions that our students wanted to see more in our schools. Besides yoga and mindfulness, Project-based learning was something that many of our students have enjoyed. Project-based learning allows our students to explore themselves and their abilities. It allows our students to take ownership, collaborate, think of, and share ideas comfortably. Allowing our students to speak with other students in their age range leads to higher level of engagement and the ability to comprehend and process more information aside from 45-minute lectures continuously.
Can I jump in and do this one? Jonathan, why don't you take this one? I know you didn't do it, but.
Oh, he's not here? Okay, anyways, it doesn't matter. I'll do it. So something else that we were looking for in the high school was a gaming room. So the advantages of having that are social gatherings, general interest, sparse conversation between people who might not have talked before we had the room, and having fun. Pointers for the room. We don't want a whole nother room for this. We just want to have it in the teacher's room who doesn't have a lot of activity going on. So in a room where there might not be a class or a certain period or after school, where there might not be extra help, we could just talk and we could play games in that room. This room will be similar to the one in middle school, which is run by Miss Parker. And we hope for this room to be open next year for a better experience for the upcoming freshmen. These are the designs, the pictures, the ideas. And last thing, so a part of the survey that Belinda was talking about, we also asked how people felt about the lunch. And there were some people who agreed. There are people who thought it was good, and there are people who thought it needs improvement. On the next slide, you'll see there's a graph. But there are people who I've spoken to outside of this. Yeah, like it says, there's some that say it's good, needs improvement. So there's a lot of opinions in the school. But when I talked to people outside of this, some were like that it is really good, and they were also appreciative of the free lunch that was given. So that was a plus for that. But they were hoping that next year or the years to come there would be different options instead of having like the same thing every day. Maybe we could change it up depending on like the day, maybe like a Taco Tuesday or something like that. So something that would be healthy and also something that could be fun also, if that makes sense. That's it.
Thank you.
Well done, team. Just hang in there for another minute in case there are any questions from the Board of Education.
No problem.
Thank you guys. You guys did a wonderful job as always. We want to thank you for taking your time to do this with the superintendent and the assistant superintendents. I always get a kick out of hearing what you guys come up with at the end of the year. Do we have any questions from the board in regards to the presentation of the students?
No questions, but it was very well done, especially the piece about incorporating mindfulness into physical education, healthy lunches, but all the ideas were excellent, very well thought out.
Very well spoken by everybody.
Okay, so I want to say thank you to all of you students, and then I want to tell you to go ahead and click off and go do some studying or some homework or some projects. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Lauren, we're gonna get you your broccoli, buddy. Don't worry about it. Promise you.
Bye.
See ya.
Want to see if they're clicked off. I believe everybody has now clicked off. Okay. Okay, so you got up before I even got a chance to say anything.
Sneaky like I didn't.
You're sneaky.
Lost half my audience.
They would have probably asked some good questions.
I bet they would.
That's right. Do you have anything to say before that? Okay, so then without further ado, we're going to welcome Mr. Press to give us our instructional side of the budget conversation.
Give us 1 second while we set up the presentation. There we go.
Oh, sorry, can you try to click back?
Yep.
It works?
Yep, all good. Thank you, Mr. Flex. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second of our budget presentations. Last week we talked about non-instructional categories. This week we're going to talk about instructional and the revenue. Going to start off again just with a little budget timeline. Today is March 9th, so we're talking about the instructional category. We have tentatively March 23rd set aside in case additional budget discussions are needed. Going to sort of jump to the end here, and we said this last week, and I know there's information being shared. The budget vote has been moved up a week. So instead of May 18th, it's going to be on May 11th. As a result, some of our other dates got pushed up a week as well. These are different from what's on the calendar. You may have seen our budget discussion and adoption will be on the 13th of April, and the budget hearing will be April 27th. So just please keep that in mind. So at a high level, our proposed budget for next year is $68.9 million. Represents a $3.7 million budget to budget increase, which is a 5.72% spending increase. Our proposed tax levy is 2.11%, the tax levy increase, which is within our tax cap. We faced a number of challenges to budgeting this year, not the least of which is our 2% tax levy cap. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The fact that foundation aid is still not fully funded and has never been fully funded, which has cost West Hempstead approximately $9 million in lost state aid, which is fairly significant when you think about it in the scope of a $68 million budget. Additionally, the governor in his executive proposal has attempted to roll a number of different expense-based aids into a single aid category, which this year he's calling services aid. Last year he tried to roll it into foundation aid. Next year maybe he'll try something else. It's a significant, it has a potential significant negative impact on us as a district. As you know, our transportation expenses have been going up, and transportation aid we get reimbursed to the tune of about 63% in terms of aid. Our increases over the last year have been in excess of 2% in terms of aid. If the governor were to cap that aid at 2%, we would be significantly impacted there. Additionally, BOCE's aid is another category that is increasing. Not surprising that those are two of the aid categories that are increasing at the highest rates. So he's trying to roll that together and then cap it. So putting a cap on our ability to levy taxes at the local level, putting a cap on state aid at the state level could be disastrous, not only for us in West Hempstead, but for districts across the state. Additional challenges to budgeting are some of these mandates that are sent down to us from the state, over which we have no control, but we have to provide funding. So these are expenses that don't necessarily come with any support or additional state aid from the state. This was a slide from last week. Additional, more specific challenges to our budgeting. Transportation, which we talked about last week, we're seeing significant increases over the last couple of years. As I mentioned last week, we do transport over 1,100 students to 94 different schools on approximately 120 different routes. It's a very expensive transportation system that we have, and I'm honestly very proud of the fact that we're small but mighty. Gina Gandolfo in the transportation office does an incredible job managing that number of routes and getting our kids to school, in district, out of district, on a daily basis. Special education is another area that has presented us with challenges. I'll talk more about that later. And debt service related to bond projects is increasing. We discussed that last week. That is offset to a certain extent by building aid. So while there's an increase in the expense, there is a corresponding increase on the revenue side. So this week we're going to talk about instructional areas. These are the codes we're going to look at, all in our 2000 range of codes. As I did last week, I'll tend to focus on the areas where there are noticeable changes, increases, decreases, and the like. So our 2010 area function code, which is largely our professional development, we have implemented over the years, the past few years, a pretty robust professional development program for our teachers, providing them with training that they need to be able to provide the best education possible for our students, particularly as it pertains to some of the new programs that we've been rolling out over the last few years, investigations and other programs like that, where there are new programs. Therefore, our teachers need training in how to implement those programs. So we're seeing a somewhat small increase there. The 2020 code, that is our supervision, relatively modest increase of about 3%, largely due to contractual salary increases. 2110, which is our largest single function code area, that's our instructional program, our regular instructional program. The increase overall it's only about 1.6%, largely again due to contractual salary increases. There are some additions in there, such as additional textbooks for some of the new programs that we're rolling out, and we'll talk a little bit more about those later. But new programs sometimes require additional supports, additional resources. But again, the bulk is increase there is contractual salary. 2250, that's our students with disabilities area, special ed. It's a significant increase in that area. This is one of the areas where we've had challenges. Some of that is, again, it's contractual salary increases. We're adding staff to support the new classes, new TAs to support some of our self-contained classes as well. There's some movement around here in this area. We hired a new psychologist this year, was budgeted in the psychologist code, but really since our work is in CPSC, CFC, that really belonged in the 2250 code, so we moved that here as well. We're seeing it's relatively flat, our expenses in related services, and actually our private and public out-of-school tuition costs as well, relatively flat. Where we're seeing a large increase is in our BOCES post. The increase there is about $650,000. A lot of that is related to the fact that we are projecting to send 5 additional students to a BOCES placement. BOCES placements are generally for our students who have higher needs and require a lot more supports. So as a result, their tuition and the related services related to their education is somewhat higher. So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a big increase in BOCES budget code. There's also an increase that is corresponding to the intensive skills program at BOCES, which is an occupational education program similar to Barry Tech. Barry Tech is programs generally for general ed kids. The intensive skills program is similar but for special ed kids, and they require additional supports to get through that program. So the tuition expense for that is it's higher than our Barry Tech program. Does anyone have any questions about any of that? No? Okay. Moving on. 2280. So that's our occupational ed program. That's Barry Tech. We're seeing a decrease there due to a decrease in enrollment. The way BOCES bills is on a 3-year rolling average of enrollment. So our enrollment has been decreasing, so our expenses actually in that area are going down. 2330 is relatively insignificant. That's our senior program and our summer program, really the summer school expense for security guards. Not large at all there. 2610 is school library. Again, flat for the most part. A slight decrease. There's been a decrease in the budgeting for library supplies and materials there. Any questions? 2630 is computer assisted instruction. We're seeing an increase there, mostly in the area of software. We are using more software. We have a new director of E&L and instructional technology, so we are increasing the use of technology. In addition, in that area, we are seeing increased costs for software licensing, and then also expansion of the licensing, the number of licenses that we have for programs that we currently have. So we're expanding that to additional students. So that comes with an added cost. 2805 is attendance, that's flat. 2810, we've got a decrease there. That's largely because our director of guidance left at the end of the 2019-20 school year. His salary was budgeted in that code for 2021. We reallocated that part of that salary to our new director of E&L and instructional technology. So the salary gets budgeted in a different area. Health services is again another slight increase. In large part, that is contractual salary increases. In addition, in working with our PPS director, Ms. Karras, recognize that some of our sub nurses that we bring in, coming from a single agency, some of them are brought in for special ed services, some of them are brought in as subs for our regular building nurses, and that was more appropriately billed to the 2815 code than the 2250 code. So we kind of cleaned that up a little bit. Any questions on any of these? Yep. All right. In the home stretch and the line items here, psychology services, again, generally flat, a slight decrease here. This is where the psychologist that we hired this year was originally budgeted with her salary to what the 2250 code. So that's why you're seeing a decrease here. Otherwise, there are the typical contractual salary increases. 2825, again, the increase there is largely contractual salaries, co-curricular activities. That's generally our clubs. It's a slight decrease, primarily due to a decrease in budgeted supplies and materials. There are budgeted contractual increases in the stipends that are provided for the clubs. And finally, in this area, we have our athletics code. We're seeing a decrease there. This is primarily because we took out a number of the athletic equipment that was budgeted, kind of put that on pause for a year. We'll come back and relook at that at a later date. Are there any questions about anything on this slide?
Just on the last interscholastic, is that, like we mentioned last time, that we don't really realize last year's budget till next year because of how it all works out. So the 2021 was certainly less athletics last year. So we won't know the expenses yet, right? So it was probably less than that because there was a significant amount of less sports, I would assume, last year. This year we're hoping for more, obviously, but we're not going to realize that expenses until like next year, right? For 2021.
Right.
Yeah, the savings from.
Right, so that's just the budgeted amount with the actual amount.
It won't be till like,
It will likely come in less. We'll have less, probably less in the area of like athletic transportation as well. Yeah. So
that's what I figured. Just wondering.
Yeah. The other questions? So this is the overall summary of the budget, just by the functional code areas. We talked about the 2000 with the instruction codes. Tonight, you see that's $36 million. That is the single largest functional code area, as it should be. That's where we want our focus to be. So what are we getting as part of this budget? As I mentioned earlier, we are adding a special education teacher at high school to support a class of either 12 or 15, depending on the student need. That's our only staffing addition in the budget. So now digging into the revenue, how are we going to pay for all of this? I'm going to kind of run through the lines here. We'll talk about where there are, noticeable changes in each line. So state aid, we're budgeting 13 million, just over 13 million. I'm going to dig into more detail in a few slides on what constitutes that 13 million. Our property tax levy, 47.8 million. That is our 2.11% tax levy increase. Pilots are flat. The tuition at Island Park, as you know, our enrollment of students from Island Park has been decreasing. The amount that's budgeted there, this year is our last year of high school gen ed students, but we do have a handful of special ed students from Island Park. And so that revenue represents revenue from those students, the non-resident tuition that we are expecting to receive next year. Tuition from other districts, we're increasing the budget there to bring it more in line with what we're actually expecting. The tuition in that line is largely for foster students that are attending West Hempstead, but that entered the foster care system when they were residing in another school district. Most of the other stuff in that top of the gray line, absent the fund balance and reserves, is flat. Our use of reserves is flat going into next year as well. We are increasing where we're seeing an increases in the appropriated fund balance. As you may recall, we finished the 1920 school year with additional fund balance that we held as unassigned fund balance. We did that for two main reasons. Number one, the state had threatened to withhold 20% of our state aid going into this year. And additionally, we were very unsure about what additional expenses we were going to incur due to COVID. The state was withholding 20% of our aid. They recently told us they were going to actually pay us the 20% so that we would be made whole. So we don't have that hovering over our head. And our COVID expenses have been, I think, relatively modest, at least compared to some of the spending I'm hearing about in other districts. And we've had results good or probably better than some of those other districts that actually spent a lot of money. So a little pat on our back there. So that's the revenue. Any questions about any of this? So again, when we talk about the tax cap, 2% tax levy cap, it's not 2%, it's not a cap. It's a threshold that if we wanted to pierce that threshold, we would need a supermajority of voters. We are not piercing that threshold. We are not. It should be very clear. Our 2.11% is within the tax cap. But some of the other factors involved, as we talked about last week, tax-based growth factor, which is essentially the growth in taxable properties in the district. We have among the lowest tax-based growth factor in Nassau County at 0.13%. The big factor in here is the rate of inflation, the CPIU, which this year is relatively low at 1.23%. In addition, in this tax cap formula are the pilot's payments in lieu of taxes and the capital projects tax levy, including our bond projects. That has an impact on the tax cap as well, as does similar projects, capital projects at BOCES. So here's our formula, just so you can see it's not as simple as what was the tax levy last year multiplied by 2%. Not even close to that. But this is the formula, and this is how we get to the 47.8 million, which is our 2.11% tax levy increase. Any questions on any of that? So, budgeted state and federal aid. Changed it up a little this year. Typically, we just talk about state aid, but the way the budgets have gone for the current school year and going into the next school year, and in addition, based on the way the governor has presented his executive budget, I made some changes here to the way we're going to talk about state aid and the federal support. For the most part, our state aid is relatively flat, little increases here, little decreases there. Where we're seeing significant increases, two main areas. One is transportation. Again, we spent more in transportation this year. We will receive more in aid next year because of that. In addition, our building aid is increasing. This is in large part due to the bond projects that we are doing. Project A, Project B are largely done. Contractor done maybe, not done. So we will recognize building aid next year when we close those projects out. I included now in here, so the last two lines in the first section of the state section of aid, the pandemic adjustment, which was the reduction in state aid this year that the governor inserted and then replaced it down below in our sort of federal aid area with the CARES Act restoration. So it was a dollar for dollar adjustment. So it just netted out to zero. Going into 21-22, there is another similar adjustment. This year, we're calling it the local district funding adjustment. It's a much larger deduction of state aid, almost $1.8 million. It is replaced dollar for dollar in the federal area with what we're now calling federal COVID-19 supplemental stimulus. So again, we are made whole by that. So it generally zeroes out. But you can see in the state subtotal area that the net change in state support is a reduction of $128,000. When we add back in the federal aid, our budgeted state aid and state and federal aid for next year is $1.3 million of an increase. I included the STAR payment here, again, because the governor included it on his executive budget runs. The net effect is really zero. We receive STAR payments every year. It is, I suppose, a form of state aid, but it's not a traditional form of state aid. All it really does is offset the levy. We levy a certain amount, and when we go out, the state says we're going to pay you, in this case, $4.4 million, which essentially means we will still get the amount that we levy, but it will be the amount that we get directly from taxpayers will be $4.4 million less, because that will come from the state. So when everyone gets their STAR checks, their exemptions from the state basically makes us whole to the same extent. I don't know if I explained that clearly. Does that make sense? Anyone have questions? It's complicated.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Press, the federal COVID-19 supplemental stimulus 1.7 change, that's not something that we're expecting every year, right? And that's similar to the problems what we saw in the past.
Yes.
And that's something that we need to keep an eye on as we move forward in the future and how the state's going to address that huge gap. Right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is, that reduction in the sort of above the line in the state subtotal, that reduction of 1.7 million. We're not likely to get that 1.7 million from the federal government again. So if that, the state would have to find a way to make up that gap for us and all the other districts on Long Island. It's very reminiscent of the gap elimination adjustments. Right. And they reduce, they said, we're going to give you full aid, but then we're going to reduce it. So you're really not going to get you full aid. So we are keeping a very close eye on that, on developments at the federal level and at the state level. So we are very cognizant of keeping an eye to see how this plays out going forward. This could be, that's a significant sum for us. Here, it could be significantly, I've seen some of the deductions for other school districts. And some of them are a lot larger, and those are gaps that I don't know that any school district will be able to make up from especially not from the local tax levy. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. Other questions? So all of that bad news. What do we got going on? That's good. There's a lot of really incredible programs that we are offering our students that will help to allow them to graduate from West Hempstead and go on to careers and college careers and to be successful individuals and productive members of society. So we've got some new courses at the high school. We are continuing our offerings of Syracuse University Project Advanced courses. Next year, we are offering personal finance. We are also offering, this is not part of the super program, but Spanish for Native Speakers 3. It's a continuation of the programs that we are offering to support our seal of biliteracy at the high school. In addition, we have a number of high school electives. These were all chosen after input from the students. And these are the classes that garnered the most interest. And I think it's a really nice, well-rounded group of courses that will again help develop our students as critical thinkers and really productive, contributing members of society. I may have to sit in, Dr. Rivers, if you're listening on the songwriting class, because I think I may need some help in that area.
We thought you were teaching the personal finance class to save us some money. Is that
I'm
not true?
available for that as well. Don't have my teaching certification, so I may need some help with lesson plans. Additionally, we are continuing our expansion of investigations math. We have rolled it out to grades K through 3 to date. Next year, we're going to roll it out and expand to grades 4 and 5. Connected math as well, we are expanding that to grade 8. We're also expanding the use of adding some social emotional learning programs. Habits of Mind will get rolled out. It's a program we've actually, as administrators, been reading the book, and some really great principles there. Just real basic principles, not only for education but for life. We're expanding project-based learning to the fine performing and culinary arts areas and phys ed and health areas, and that ties in nicely to what our students from the high school said about wanting more PBL. Additionally, we're continuing the career exploration program for our special ed students, and we are participating in the New York Institute of Technology Smart Start Grant Program. The goal of that program is to improve the expertise of teachers in grade K through 8 in computer science, engineering, and educational technology, so they can prepare their students to be successful in college, career, and citizenship. Again, tying it very nicely with our overall goal for our students. Future plans, expanding college credit offering so that our students can graduate with college credits, which may allow them to graduate sooner from college, and it actually allows them to accumulate college credits at a much lower cost than if they were a matriculated student. We're looking at rolling out a new science program, K through 8, expanding our award-winning research programs. Congratulations to our Samsung team. Rolling out more social emotional learning programs. Looking forward to opening our preschool once our construction gets started this summer, or after the construction finishes. We'll start this summer.
I'm just gonna say that every day. I'm gonna say that every day.
We're also looking to get some new track and field equipment that would actually allow us to host track meets here in West Hempstead, so we can show off our wonderful facilities. And then rolling out the new phys ed and next gen science standards. And finally, this is a new slide that we're excited to talk about. Our new and continuing partnerships. We have a lot of great partnerships with organizations on Long Island and beyond that are helpful for our students and our teachers as well. So the NYU Langone Envision Scholar Program. The goal of that program is to increase diversity of the physician workforce. They've got high school and college kids in workshops, hands-on workshops, working alongside medical students and residents and attending physicians at NYU Winthrop Hospital, so they could learn more about the world of medicine with a focus on primary care specialty. Our Adelphi University residency program has students from Adelphi who are pursuing their teaching degree coming into the district to get real world classroom experience and work with our students and help our teachers. And if I'm getting any of this wrong, please, you guys jump.
I was just thinking in my head truly that you're doing such a great job as a business official describing our academic programs. Don't jinx it now, keep going.
You already was gonna say we didn't need.
Yeah, that's
no question.
We have the New York State Peer Mentoring Program, which began back in 1984, that trains volunteers, matches them up with mentees. So we have mentor-mentee meetings in a supervised school environment. But the goal there is to reduce high school dropout rates. Our diversity fair with Nassau BOCES, which is we are partnering with Nassau BOCES to increase the diversity of the workforce here in West Hempstead with teachers and staff. Primary project through the Children's Institute. It's another national program, almost 65 years old, that helps children in pre-K through third grade adjust to school, gain confidence, social skills, and to focus on learning. And finally, the U.S. Department of Education Talent Search Program in connection with Nassau Community College. That program seeks to encourage on-time completion of high school and entry into post-secondary education, and also to promote development of knowledge and skills that build well-prepared, thoughtful, and informed, productive members of society. All just tying into what it is that we are trying to do here in West Hempstead. Any questions about any of that? I would ask you to. I can read a blurb as well as anyone. Can't give you a lot of depth. So that's the presentation. Again, keeping in mind, the numbers right now are preliminary. They are working on a budget up in Albany. The state aid numbers often change as part of those negotiations. So we're keeping a close eye on that. And as we get more information, we will share it with the board and we will share it with the community. And just finally, additional dates to keep in mind. Again, that tentative March 23rd date, if there is a need for further discussion. Budget adoption on Tuesday, April 13th, and the budget vote Tuesday, May 11th in the middle school gym. The budget hearing, I know, I put this together and I just realized, so the budget hearing, which I did mention at the beginning, is April 27th.
So just a quick note to the board, being that our school calendar is obviously not accurate. The dates on the front page of this calendar, on the front page of this presentation are all not necessarily dates that are in the calendar. So just make sure you read this because these are the dates we need to be here.
Or the district website has been changed to calendar.
Yes. But if you're using the printed calendar like I do, now has multiple changes all over it. So we just need to make sure that we do that. Mr. Press, thank you very much for a very well done presentation. Does anybody from the board have questions in regard to anything that we spoke about? Or any of the categories?
This might not be the right time, but the fund balance, like I know we have all those different categories, the different stuff we have reserves. What's with the amount we're utilizing now? What's our percentage of I forget the right term, but like reserve balance?
Oh, the unassigned.
Yeah. What does it look like now, percentage wise?
Right. As of this year or after? After that, the plan would be to be at 4%.
Okay. Because we were using more, I wanted to,
Yeah, the moment we have more than 4, the goal, well, the end result here would be, we would be at 4%.
Got it. Thank you.
Which brings us back into compliance. Correct?
Yes.
Last week, I know Mrs. Day had questioned how many students were in charter schools. If I am not mistaken, when I read it today, it's 13, correct?
I believe, yes, that's what we have this year.
That wasn't me, that was Barbara Hafner, but
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it was somebody.
Mr. Press, could you just tell me again in the transportation section, you said we transport to X number of different routes. What was that number, 94?
94 schools, it's about 120 routes. Some of the schools have multiple and multiple buses.
100. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
What's the anticipation? I know usually we don't really have an answer, but do we have any anticipation in regard to the TRS or ERS for the following year? Like sometimes they say they anticipate it to go back up. We have no.
I haven't heard anything about anticipating increases. My gut would say, I don't know, the market's been doing, it dipped, but it came back really well. And the returns of the pension funds are tied to the market. So I imagine things should stay relatively flat, but I haven't heard anything official.
And though I know we've gotten notification or we've been told we're going to be made whole by what we're missing next year from last year, what's the chance that that's really not gonna
I mean,
happen? We're just believing that this is what's gonna happen.
That was the communication that came to us directly from SED was
that it's gonna
happen. So trusting that was an accurate statement. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I have no reason to not believe that what they said will happen.
Do we have any other questions from the board? So at this time, I'm gonna ask you, we're gonna open the chat box. If you have a question, if you could throw it in the chat box for me. Or just at least say that you have a question and I'll call on you and ask you to unmute yourself. I don't know if not, Sandy, go ahead, Mrs. Day.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what's going on with the chat box, but for some reason I see it says enter chat message here, but I can't type anything in.
That's
So I don't
okay.
know if anybody else is experiencing that on their end, but I am on my end, so I couldn't type anything. But it's better for me to be unmuted for my question anyway. I think it's a little bit better to ask without having to type so much. I just wanted to refer back to the it's actually the regular school item that Mr. Press spoke about. And I know you said that the overall was like a 1.5% increase. It had a lot of areas compiled together, textbooks and other items. I wanted to refer specifically to the GW textbook financial allotment, because I saw that in 2019 to 2020, the budget was allotted $45,875, and the actual expenditures from the previous year that were recorded were $29,049, which represents a surplus of around approximately $17K. Considering, the projected budget or the budget that is acquired eventually has a cushion of 5 to 10%. I'm not sure what the cushioned area is for the projections or the adopted budget, but that would be an additional $1,452 to $2,900 on top of what the actual expenditures were. And the budget far exceeded that. And I kind of wanted to know what was the reason why. I also wanted to inquire as to why the budget increased in this particular area, again, from 45K to 85K, which is an increase of 36K, plus the previous year's 17K surplus, which is a total of 53K over 1 year to the next, which I'm not sure. That doesn't seem like it's accounted for. And it looks like the proposed budget for this upcoming year is going up again by another 40K, which equates to a total of 93K over 2 to 3 years. And I'm not going to speak about individual student situations with textbooks concerning that. However, I do know that from what I'm aware of, you guys did incorporate the new investigations math program. It's a little bit difficult to tell where these itemizations are going to, because for the middle school, there's a little bit more of a comprehensive breakdown with each subject area: social studies, math, science, etc. Whereas for GW, everything is just compacted together. And I feel like this is a big increase comparatively to the middle school and some of the other areas where you kind of see increases and decreases in certain subject areas.
Was that the question? So I can let Mr. Press answer?
Yes, that was my first question. I didn't ask my second one yet, but that's my only question for that particular area, which is A2110.480-04. And I don't have the expenditures from last year, so I can't really, because it's not on there. We only have it from 2019 to 2020, not 2020 to 2021.
Okay, well, 2020 to 2021 is not finished yet, so any expenditures that might have been budgeted there wouldn't really be an accurate picture for the whole year. But the increases at GW are largely due to the programs that we're rolling out, in particular investigations, math. Again, they have 3 grades at GW. And so these new programs, there's an added cost associated with those programs. In addition, we have, the need for textbooks in other areas as well, like science, English and social studies, things of that nature. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the increase there is largely due to the investigations program, because we're, again, we said we're rolling it out in grades 4 and 5.
And 6th grade is connected math.
6th grade is connected math, which is 6th grade at GW as well. I don't know if that answered the question.
I think that it would just help if we have that itemization under that particular school, because the intermediate school is 4, 5, and 6, and the middle school is 7 and 8, so it's 1 grade less. So that might account for some of the differences with that financial allotment, but I think that it would bring greater clarity to the residents if there is an itemization, if you're saying that it's not only investigations and connected math, but it's also other subject areas that are accounted for, because we don't have those expenditures, so there's no way for us to really kind of bring that into a logical sense when it comes to the budget itemizations on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why things are broken out in more detail at the middle school and the high school, because they have there's more distinct classes in those subjects. That's why historically that's how that's what has happened. Because it's easier to say there is a particular math class or an English class or a social studies class. So we break out those expenses in greater detail. That's why it's done that way.
Mrs. Day, you had a second question?
Yes. I just think that's something we might want to think of, probably improvising a little bit. My second question was relative to the auditing area under treasurer A 1325.160. From 2019 to 2020, the financial allotment for expenditures was 32,000, and the budget went up to 80,000 the following year. And then it did go a little bit down for this year's proposed budget by 10,000. But from 2019 to 2020 to last year, I feel like there was a really big increase, and then it did come down by 10K. So what are we utilizing to determine these big jumps and then a 10K setback? Did we hire another individual? Was another position added to this area? Why is the projected and the proposed so much greater than the actual expenditures?
Okay. So in the 1920 school year, our treasurer, it was a part-time position. For the 2021 school year, that position was made a full-time position. So that's why the increase was there. The budgeted amount there was an anticipated salary. We were able to hire someone at a slightly lower salary. So that's why you're seeing an increase in one year and then a decrease for the projected budget for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have a question at this time? If you could either raise your hand or put so in the chat, Mrs. Hagner.
Your chat doesn't work, just so you know.
Okay.
Chat's not working. Couple questions. I downloaded the actual 2021-22 budget draft, which for my 20 plus years of attending Board of Ed meetings was actually what we received when going over a budget. So it was very clear what we were looking at and how you can compare line by line items. I am looking at, and I'm not sure, maybe it's just a typo. Line number 1310.160. It's our accounts payable payroll clerk salary. And if I did my math correct, that's a 62% increase from 2021 to 21-22. Is that correct?
No, I think that's, go ahead, you, that's yours.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, so if you look actually at the line directly below that, that was the assistant business manager line, there's no projected salary for next year. It's because our assistant business manager had retired. And we had the position that is filling in for part of that role is budgeted in the 1310.160 line. So that's where the change is there. We shifted the salary into that line. It's not as high salary as it was in the past.
So the 102,000 goes up to 158,000. Is that correct?
No. There was, if you see for the 2021 budget, there's a salary in there. We added, so now there's two positions in the one line instead of, the position now is not assistant business manager.
I see. And the line above it, 1310150, that is a 10% increase in that salary?
Thereabouts.
I'm sorry?
You're looking at the increase from 2021 to 21-22?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a budgeted increase, yeah.
That's a 10% increase, okay. And I'm looking at lines 220150, and then there's a 1, there's a 2, there's a 4, and the 01 and the 02 look like there's a 4% increase in the 01, a 3.6% on the 02, and then the other salaries look like they're just under 2%. Are those correct increases?
Can you read the number again? Because I wasn't ready to follow you.
Sure. It's 220.150, and then it's 01, 02, 04.
So are you actually saying the 2020.150?
The 1020.150, 01, 02, 04. They're right below each other.
Yeah. Well, you had said 220, so I'm just clarifying.
I'm sorry, yes, 2020.
Yeah, so whatever is budgeted in there, those are the contractual increases.
Okay. And then I have a question about the bond. You said that building A, I'm not sure if I'm referring to it correctly, and building B are just about done.
It's the projects, Barbara. It's project A and project B that are almost done. So they're split up, like project A had the fields in it and some other work in the high school, middle school, like the science labs. And then it was project B that had some other stuff like the elevators and whatnot. And then project C involves the downstairs at Chestnut, the media center at the high school, et cetera.
And project A, did that include the windows?
Yes.
Okay, and are all of those windows no longer leaking, and are the ceilings repaired?
So you're talking, where are you talking? At the high school?
Yes.
Okay, that's a separate project that we have not gotten SED approval on yet. It has to do with, so I believe the leaking.
You break it up.
Yeah, I believe the leaking has been stopped. We were able to apply a sealant on the brick face on the front of the high school that stopped the leaking. The work to permanently fix that is in process, or at least, I mean, it's not been approved by SED yet, but to my knowledge, There are no leaks at the moment.
So we
It's just-
still have bond projects that are incomplete.
Well, we have a whole part of the bond that's not complete because it
Well,
got
I know
stuck
there's
by
another
COVID.
project C.
No, what you're talking about with the leaking, it's not the windows that were leaking. When they did the work on the windows, they realized leaking in the lintels, which is part of the mortar and the brickwork outside of the building. That's where the leaking is coming from, not from the new windows. So that's not a bond, that's not part of the bond project. We had to go out and get approval to have that work done separate unto itself.
But it still needs to be done.
Yes, and it will be done. But at the moment, it's been sealed, and there is no leaking that we're aware of.
And the rooms have repaired their ceilings?
Well, we haven't repaired everything because they have to rip stuff out in order to fix the lintel work.
And where is the high school auditorium ceiling in this bond?
The high school auditorium ceiling is not part of the bond. That's work that has to be done through the district. That money was budgeted for, and again, part of that project is still waiting SED approval.
All right, again, I'm gonna ask that in the future to be more transparent. We have the draft of the budget available upon presentation as opposed to which is a lovely presentation. But really to be accurate and transparent, I think you need to have that out. It's really important for our community to be very much aware of how we're spending our money so that people feel comfortable in voting yes for our budget. And I have one other question. Looking at your projects, what is happening with the social studies curriculum for grade 6? Having been a grade 6 teacher that happened to teach grades, social studies and math, grade 6 social studies needs some help.
Okay, I don't know what the question is.
When are you going to be working on the grade 6 social studies curriculum?
Okay, that's not part of this conversation, Mrs. Hoffman. So if you want to come to the board meeting next week and have a conversation in regard to that, or call Mrs. Riley if you have a question, but that's a curriculum issue.
You listed, but no, you did present what you were doing in the future, and I figured, what's the future of the social studies curriculum?
Mrs. Riley will answer your question, Ms. Hafner.
Perfect. And last but not least, when are we going?
Ms. Riley's gonna answer your question. Hold on a minute.
Let her finish answering your question.
Oh, great. I thought I had to call her. Go ahead.
Currently, each year, we subscribe to the Putnam Westchester BOCES curriculum that there's an updated budget that has.
You break it up.
Well, you need to mute everyone needs to mute while you're not, when someone else is speaking, because it's hard to hear because you're making all kinds of noise. Thank you.
Each year, we subscribe to the Putnam Westchester BOCES social studies curriculum that gets updated, and we subscribe to that each year. And the principal distributes a link to the teachers that they can use to utilize as a map for their lesson planning.
I'm sorry, but we had curriculum that we would sit and develop and look at different resources for our students. Not going to some BOCES and then, creating a curriculum as we move along.
Okay, Mrs. Hafner, if you want to discuss that part further, you can call during the week and speak to Mrs. Riley. Did you have another question?
Yes, when are we going to be moving to a larger location so we can meet in person?
Well, we still had restrictions in regard to meeting in person, and this is the best forum for us to be able to utilize the video equipment to be able to Zoom on a better level. When we were trying to do so in other areas, we would have problems with Wi-Fi and whatnot. So at this point, I mean, we do have people that we don't tend to have an audience because we are on Zoom, but you probably have room for the 4 people that are at this meeting. If we go back to the video conference room, it's not going to be any better right now. We have a system here that works. So right now we're working on Zoom as best we can.
The last meeting that I attended for the Board of Ed was in the middle school cafeteria, and there was a lot of space.
Yes, but the WebEx does not work as well in that room. Do we have any other questions from the audience at this time?
Yeah, I have one. I think I just wanted to piggyback on what Barbara was saying with regard to the differences of the increases for the principals as opposed to the superintendent for business. Why is there such a disparity in those areas? I know you were saying contractually because of contractual agreements with the principals and the educators and so forth. Do we not have a contractual agreement with superintendents or assistant superintendents? And if so, what is usually the anticipated cap on their salary increases on a per annual basis?
Principal salary increases are based on their WASA contract, and central office contracts are done yearly. So each central office administrator has a contract that is done yearly, and their salaries are commensurate with the decisions of the board at that time.
Okay, who determines the central office contracts? Who makes the decisions in the central office on their increases specifically?
The Board of Education.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions from the audience at this time?
I have another question with regard to the bond project.
Sure.
Do we have, I think you said there was one additional item that is left as far as like project. You said you did A and B and there's one outstanding one. Is that correct?
Well, it's a lot of projects in what's Project C. It's the remaining items from the original bond.
The remaining items from Project C. Is there a breakdown of these particular items? The ones that were completed and the ones that are still outstanding on the board docs or online somewhere where we can retrieve it and look it over at our own convenience?
If you go on, I believe on the district website, I haven't looked at it in a while because I generally have the information. If you go on the district website, there is bond project updates on there. Project C consists mainly of, I'm going to say whatever's left from the original bond, but it's the high school media center, all the parking lots, it's the middle school gym addition, it is the downstairs at Chestnut Street where the preschool would go or the additional classrooms would go, the handicap ramp at the high school. I'm trying to go off the top of my head with it, but
and these are all online, Karen. I don't want you to have to, wreck your brain right now. I just want to know if
yes, it should be listed online as Project C.
Okay, but there's no overall projected what was completed under A, what was completed under B.
So prior to COVID, I don't know if you remember when you walked into any of the school buildings, there was a giant like a board, like a poster board, and it would be blacked out what was finished in each.
I have no clue. I've never seen that.
So there's a chart in every building, which obviously you can't see now because we're not really going into the buildings. But if you go online under district, under the bond, it'll show you that chart online with all the blacked out marks of what was already completed and what's not completed.
Okay, and one last question. I know you'll be a little bit more familiar with the bond project than I am as far as all the aspects that were proposed to be completed and what actually was completed. Were all the windows and furnaces for each building included within that bond project? Or were there only specific ones?
No, there were only specific items in every building. However, the middle school and the high school all got new windows. There were some new windows at Cornwall Avenue. There will be windows included in the downstairs, I think, but don't count me on that. The windows that were done at GW were actually a budgeted item from prior to the bond. It just took a while for it to get approved and be done. So those weren't even part of the bond project. The furnaces were done in boilers, right? Sorry. We're done in Chestnut Street.
Every building has.
Every
at least
building,
one.
right?
High school,
At least two.
Every building has at least one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Roofs in every
Right.
building.
And ask me about routes.
They're the one in the thing.
Do we? Do we have any other questions from the audience at this time? Okay, so with that being said, I know I sound like a broken record. We'll be back here next week for our regular business meeting. So please feel free to join us, same time, same bat channel. If I can figure out a way sooner or later, we will all be back in person. I really have to tell you how much I hate being on this camera. So it's not that I don't want to have an in-person meeting. I just would like to make sure that everybody is safe and we're really not bringing people into the buildings either. So at this time, I need a motion to move into executive session for advice of counsel. Second. All in favor? Motion passes. Have a wonderful week. And we'll see you all next week, or we hope to see you all next week. Stay safe.
Don goes, Mr. Don, what do you need?